Here on Thacker, and there are dozens upon dozens of horror slashers. Some quiet, some talkative, some tall, some short, and some are leprechauns. A short, magical creature that has a longing for gold and shining shoes. A lot of people forget that. This slasher has been around for decades, and is more commonly referred to as more of a joke than anything. But how did Leprechaun become the butt of the joke for the slasher genre? Well, to figure that out, we have to start from the beginning. Mark Jones was an aspiring young director and writer, and he wanted to make his first movie, and decided he would have the best chance with a low-budget horror film. With inspiration from Lucky Charms and Critters, in 1993, Leprechaun was released. Directed and written by Mark Jones, and starring Warwick Davis, Jennifer Aniston, and Ken Aldant, just to name a few. With a budget of only $900,000, Leprechaun made $8.5 million. And didn't do great critically, but since it did make a pot of gold, Leprechaun 2 was inevitable. Released in 1994, Leprechaun 2, or as it's known in the UK, One Wedding and Lots of Funerals. Alright. Directed by Robin Flander, and written by Turi Mayer and Al Septon. Starring Warwick Davis, Siobhan Durkin, and Charlie Heath, just to name a few. It made $2.3 million on a budget of $1.5 million. It has a 6% critically on Rotten Tomatoes. It will be the last main Leprechaun movie to be released theatrically. We'll get to that when we get to it. It is actually the only Leprechaun movie that takes place on St. Patrick's Day. Really? Leprechaun 3 was released in 1995. It was directed by Brian Trenchard Smith and written by David DeBose, starring Warwick Davis, John Gaddens, and Lee Armstrong, just to name a few. With a budget of $1.2 million, and was the best-selling direct-to-video movie of 1995. Really? Leprechaun 3, the one where he goes to Vegas, and has a 0% critically on Rotten Tomatoes. Leprechaun 4 in Space, released in 1996. It was directed again by Brian Trenchard Smith, and written by Dennis Pratt, starring Warwick Davis, Rebecca Carlton, and Brent Jasner, just to name a few. With a budget of $1.6 million, I'm gonna take a guess that it probably didn't sell very well. It doesn't have a good percentage of Rotten Tomatoes, but it's still better than Leprechaun 3. It has such a terrible VHS cover. And this is the one where the Leprechaun gets a lightsaber, because that's canon. In 2000, Leprechaun In The Hood released. This is why this franchise is seen as a joke. Directed by Rob Spira and written by Doug Hall, starring Warwick Davis, Ice-T, and Anthony Montgomery, just to name a few. With a budget of $1.4 million, and well, it must have done something, because it did get a sequel. We'll get to that in a bit. And it has a Rotten Tomato percentage, which is still pretty low, but again, better than Leprechaun 3. In 2003, Leprechaun Back to the Hood was released. When this movie's looking at you embarrassed, you know he messed up somewhere. Directed and written by Stephen A. Romley, starring Warwick Davis, Tangy Miller, and Laz Alonso, just to name a few. It has a Rotten Tomato percentage which is pretty predictable for this franchise, and I can't find the budget, so for 11 years, it seemed like the Leprechaun franchise was down the bottom of a well. But in 2014, Leprechaun Origins was released, a remake of the original Leprechaun, made by WWE Studios. Directed by Zach Lepowski, I definitely butchered that, and written by Harris Wilkson, starring Hornswoggle, I know nothing about WWE, Melissa Roxburgh, and Gary Chalk, just to name a few. The budget is unknown for some reason, but it made $2.1 million. It has an actually impressively low score, and is the lowest of the franchise. And apparently the Leprechaun in this one isn't inspired by Leprechaun folklore or even Critters, but is inspired by subterranean mole rats. In 2018, a remake will be released, titled Leprechaun Returns, which pulls a Halloween 2018 and ignores all the Leprechaun sequels. It was directed by Stephen Koskonski and written by Suzanne Keeley. This has been the first time this version of Leprechaun has not been played by Warwick Davis, instead being played by Lyndon Porso, who was also one of the body doubles for one of the Chucky dolls in Cult of Chucky. Fun little connection between the short kings of the horror genre. It also stars Taylor Spreetler and Mark Colton. It was played by Lionsgate and premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel. And again, I can't find a budget. But since we haven't got another Leprechaun movie yet, I'm going to assume it didn't do great. And on Rotten Tomatoes is the highest rated Leprechaun movie. So what made the Leprechaun franchise a joke? The butt end of the horror genre. Well, it was kind of always a joke. Leprechaun's a horror comedy franchise. But there was a point when this franchise became a joke that started to not be funny. One could argue that was Leprechaun 2. In my opinion, it was in the hood. But if someone said in space, then I would understand. And for a few years now, another Leprechaun movie has been in the works. But let me know in the comments below, what do you think about the Leprechaun franchise? Also, if you've been enjoying this video, thanks for liking and subscribing. Bye guys for now! Bye bye, Scaron Thacker.